Welcome inside Appalachia. I'm Mason Adams. One of America's greatest contributions to world culture is hip-hop. A new compilation documents what it sounds like in Appalachia.
It's so diverse, the sounds of everything, and it's all dope. It's so many different voices. This is across states, some great songs, great perspectives, great storytelling.
People in Appalachia love their local water springs. But in Berkeley Springs, West Virginia, folks take that dedication to another level.
People swear by that water. They take a bath in it, they wash their hair, they cook, they do everything.
And congressional Republicans are trying to freeze funding for new mine safety rules. Advocates are concerned
to cut the funding from MSHA, an organization that already has very limited funding in the first place, is a travesty to all miners out there.
You'll hear these stories and more this week inside Appalachia. Welcome inside Appalachia. I'm Mason Adams. Hip-hop has been in Appalachia for about as long as the genre has been around, about 50 years. Its presence here is the subject of a new compilation from June Apple Recordings titled No Options, Hip-Hop in Appalachia. No Options collects 24 tracks from across Appalachia, showcasing the depth and breadth of the regional scene. I recently spoke with executive producer J.K. Turner and rapper Eric Jordan, also known as Monstalong, who appears on the album. I started by asking Monstalong how he first heard about hip-hop.
That would be through my cousins. When I first lived in Cleveland, Ohio, like a lot of families do, the grandmas take care of the cousins while the parents work. So we go over my grandmother's house. But one of my cousins and his brothers, my cousin actually lived in Cleveland, but his brothers lived in New York. And they would come down to New York and Cleveland and tell us about this up-and-coming art form that they heard about. It had some dancing in it. They did artwork and this thing, rapping and freestyling. Well, when we left Cleveland and eventually moved to Ansted, West Virginia, my cousins still were making those trips in the summer. So they were coming down to Ansted, West Virginia, and giving us more detail about the culture of hip-hop. And my cousins were pretty involved in all the facets. My cousin David, he did graffiti art in his notebook. He wrote raps in his book. I was already a dancer, so breaking and stuff. I was locking before I was popping, and that's all we kind of did during those summers. They came down was we played athletics and went down to the park and freestyle rap. And then once I got to college, it kept on going. But I started getting more as hip hop started to grow, and I always related to the punk scene because the kids in the punk scene, they were going through the same thing we were going through because hip hop and punk kind of came up together. So like we were the weird kids wearing the weird clothes, us and the punk kids. When I got to college, I started finding people who like DJ John Quick. He was a mentor of mine at Marshall University. He's a world-renowned DJ right now. But just watching him work on his craft, the Tougher Than Leather tour coming to Marshall University, the Run DMC tour, that had a very, very big impact on me. But when I committed to music, like to becoming an artist, that was after I heard Tribe Called Quest, People's Distinct. We just talked about this, JK. What's the name of that?
That's right. People's Distinct Travels through Paths of Rhythm.
Yes. The first album. Yes.
First album, number one.
It was that album that I was like, I gotta do this. I got to learn how to make music like this. And from that on, I was like, all right, this is what makes me happy. This is what I love. I'm committing to that. And that was like the early 90s.
I think it's interesting you mentioned punk and hip hop coming up together. And not only they're about the same age, but they're both like have an emphasis on do it yourself. Like you can start a punk band, start a hip hop group with very little equipment or experience. And so in an era where everything is accessible through the internet and you can hear not just hip hop from Morgantown, but hip hop from New Orleans, from East Coast, West Coast, what distinguishes hip hop in Appalachia, you think?
The stories for sure. It's us against the world mentality. Everybody's counting us out. Knowing, or do they even know we exist?
Yeah.
It's finding your voice. and repping for yours. When I moved back here in 1999 to do hip hop with my brother, we made a conscious effort to like, let's put it in the music. Let's give these kids something they can call their own. We called our group 304 Recons. 304 is the area code of West Virginia back then. And we just made sure we talked about Appalachia living. We talked about, trailer parks, hollers, things that's going on in our world to give these kids something to be proud of.
So, JK, you mentioned your work on the No Options compilation. You're executive producer. How did the compilation come about? How did y'all end up working with Appalachia and putting this album together?
Yeah, that's interesting, and it was a really fun time seeing it come together. My father is Dr. William H. Turner. He's probably, actually, I checked it on ChatGPT the other day. I asked ChatGPT to tell me who would I go to if I wanted to talk about Black people in Appalachia. And the first three things that came up was stuff my dad had a hand in. That he was the premier guy to go to for the stories of Black people in Appalachia and their history and the culture. And he and Dr. Ted Olson from East Tennessee State had a podcast. So Sepia Tones is the name of that. It's about the history of Black music in Appalachia, actually. Ted's an ethnomusicologist at East Tennessee State. And as they were, doing that programming together and talking about the history of Black music in Appalachia, there wasn't much chronicled, especially with Ted being in that genre of Appalachian music. He knew about all kind of stuff, but didn't know about hip hop in Appalachia. And as they started talking about it, they do as those type of guys, lifelong academics do, and ended up writing a grant proposal to study and to produce an album of Appalachian hip hop music. And they won that grant and were able to, take the money and partner with any record label, we would have chosen. But Appalachia and June Apple Recordings as the right place to go for this sort of work. My dad has a really long history with them, going back as long as I can remember, just some of the things even when I was a kid going to different events at Appalachia. And I came into this because those two guys, Dr. Olson, Dr. Turner, are, in their 70s, not as plugged into hip hop as, you might want for someone trying to put an album like this together. So from the start, they asked me to kind of lead the way as to how to connect with people, social media, and, what to even be listening for as we're curating the songs and kind of, what's right for this introductory kind of project we're putting together. And it was a very rewarding time to work with them and put it together. Late 2022 is when everything kind of got rolling. And so, yeah, it's been time well spent, and I'm glad the product is out now and people are going to be able to hear this music we put together.
Can y'all maybe both pick out a track from the compilation and kind of shout it out and tell, for listeners who ain't heard it, maybe pick one track and tell us what's compelling about it, why folks should check it out.
Genova, and he has two tracks on there. It's the first track, I think it's track 4 or 5.
Yeah, SNS, number
Ooh.
5.
Lord.
Why life so full of the give and the take? Equivalents don't seem to be for exchanging. About 27, I feel like it raining. Can't join the club, so I gotta maintain these.
The production on it, the beat production is ridiculous, but you can tell he is a master level MC. Just his flow, his delivery, the way he's moving in and out the beat. As when it comes to different types of forms of hip hop, I'm first a boom bap artist. I'm from old school boom bap, and that's that vibe he gave me.
I was talking to Genova about that track. SNS stands for Spirits and Succubus. It's about those addiction battles that you go through, and you talk about Appalachian stories, being introduced to liquor at a very young age, and how it just can become part of your life.
I love that. I'm gonna steal another one. I'm sorry, JK.
No
What's
doubt.
sister?
Sister Zoc.
Oh my God, that's an
Zoc.
amazing.
Yeah, her track is Love, number 20.
I was caught up, stuck, hoodwinked, but I'm up, forgot about the breath and how to breathe. I forgot who I was and where was me. Then a poet appeared, dressed as a tree. Said,
she's actually a native New Yorker, but came to UT, Tennessee, Knoxville on a track scholarship. That was her introduction to Appalachia, and she put together the Kumba Festival in Tennessee. So that was kind of the first hip hop shows they ever had at UT Knoxville, with some of the shows Sisters Ock put together years ago in the 90s. So yeah, I'm glad you mentioned those two songs. I would mention the song Show Up from Stunner T. It's number 23 on the track. And Stunner's actually incarcerated in Big Stone Gap. And, you know, he's recorded this song over the cell phone, you know, to his wife, recording on the other end, and has made 2 full albums doing that, you can find online. And yeah, we were able to get hooked up with him through June Apple, he and his wife, and had a great conversation with him, as well as some great song submissions. And we're able to pick this one, and we're real excited for him to get home in 2025. And hopefully, you know, we'll be able to put some kind of tour together and feature him and these other artists to showcase his work.
Hip hop is kind of modern day folk music. I mean, just from what y'all described, you got it from other people. You got it from relatives. It was passed from person to person. And now y'all are carrying on that tradition. What does this compilation tell us about mountain hip hop today?
It's dope.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was gonna say. That it's on the way up. This music is really nice. This is just, and I mean, it's so diverse. Just the sounds of everything, and it's all dope. Like Eric says, it's so many different voices. This is across states. You know, some states are you know, more represented than others. Hopefully, we get to do another volume and even get more artists on here. But this group we put together this time is just real nice, some great songs, great perspectives, great storytelling.
You know, we didn't get to hear the whole project till it came out. I knew the songs that I submitted, but when I heard the actual whole album, I was blown away. Like hearing some of these other artists from these other areas in Appalachia, I was like, oh, well, we ain't the only dope ones in here. It's a really good album.
What did y'all learn from this album? Is there anything you picked up along the way? Some wisdom maybe to impart?
Definitely. It makes me think of just how to live and how we all have to work together. We might have differences in beliefs or politics or whatever it be, especially going to this, but shows how we can all, you know, at the end of the day in the holler, if this dude know how to work on engines, it don't matter what color he is.
Mm-hmm.
That's who we going to. And we all work and look out for each other. So it's just these little stories. And I knew we've had these stories, because I've always felt like I know so many artists within my state alone who has these unique stories. And just to hear these other areas like that too, I was like, yeah, Appalachia got a lot to say.
A little Mary Jane, fruity strain in my gin and tonic. Thick and stilly, there's a band, and it's quite ironic. Like 3 times dope.
That was West Virginia rapper Monstalone and J.K. Turner, the executive producer on a new collection of Appalachian hip-hop. It's called No Options, Hip Hop in Appalachia. The track you're hearing is from Monstalone's newest album, An Appalachian Hip-Hop Story Part 1. You can find out more on our website, wvpublic.org. Hip-hop isn't the only music that's found a connection to Appalachia. The Chinese hammered dulcimer, it turns out, blends really well with Appalachian folk. NPR's Layla Fadel has more.
Some combinations sound odd, but work really well together. Pickles and ice cream, French fries and milkshakes, bacon, turkey bacon in my case, and donuts. 3 musicians stumbled across a recipe that combines American and Chinese music, and it just works. Grammy Award-winning American folk artists Kathy Fink and Marcy Marxer teamed up with Chinese musician Chao Qian for a new album called From China to Appalachia. It blends musical traditions from opposite sides of the world as smoothly as peanut butter and chocolate. Let's start with how this trio came to be. Kathy, Marcy, you met Chao in 2017. Kathy, what happened when you invited Chao over to your house for a jam session?
Well, Chao had apparently never been to a jam session, and Chao actually thought it had to do with food.
You were like, sure jam on bread.
That's right. And it took about 2 tunes for her to just move into a different mode, get into the idea of collaborating and improvising and play along with each other.
What was that like, Chao?
Yeah. That day changed my music career, my music direction. Once I get into this improvisational world, never come back.
Marcy, what happened when you all played your first concerts together?
We had a fantastic time, but the reaction of the audience, there were some Chinese people in the audience, and then our folk people came, and it was electric. So then we realized it was more than us bonding and having a great time.
Now, Kathy, back in February, you posted a video on TikTok promoting your concert tour. Let's hear a bit of that.
Here's a little tune we're just working up today. We're going to overlay a Chinese tune with an American tune called Glory in the Meeting House. So we call this Glory Meets the Meeting House. 1, 2, 3, 4. It went viral. It shocked us. We threw it up on TikTok, and the next day it had 250,000 views.
250,000?
But the great thing was it sold out all of our shows. It brought a whole new audience and a lot of young people, and they have loved the collaboration.
The Chinese audience is actually from the States. They're like familiar with those Chinese tunes that I introduced to Kathy and Marcy. And every time I can see, they're like, wow, those are songs that we grew up with.
Chao, if you could describe the instrument you played.
The Chinese dulcimer is an instrument that was originally introduced by Western traveler in the late 16th century to East Coast China. I feel like a deep cultural connection when playing Appalachian music. So many commonalities in scale, format, instrumentation, where I can catch glimpses of Chinese folk songs.
Now, Kathy, you play a traditional 5-string banjo. Tell me about what you do to make your instruments blend with Chao's instrument from China.
On the 5-string banjo, different keys and different moods are achieved by different tunings. So, for instance, this is a double C tuning and a little bit of but if I just change one string, now I'm in a modal tuning. And probably in this band, I use about 6 different tunings, and each one of them evokes something different, and Chao can match that.
And Chao, what are some of the things that you do to make your hammer dulcimer mesh with the banjos?
Oh, yeah. So a technique that we borrowed from sliding guitar is to use a rain sliding.
Oh, that is really, I can hear the slide ring. Marcy, you play a cello banjo.
Yeah, the cello banjo is a big banjo tuned like a cello. And so it has a lower side that the other instruments don't have. So I kind of gravitate to it, and it gives us another texture.
We're just enjoying playing together and seeing what fits. Marcy and I started playing Glory in the Meeting House, and Chow, within 20 seconds, said there's a Chinese tune that sounds a lot like this.
Yeah.
And we can overlay them and have a really amazing collaboration at the same time. And I think it's a great metaphor for how music and cultures become that people-to-people diplomacy.
Yeah. So often now, when China and the U.S. are in the news, it's about economic competition and global tensions. And here you guys are finding these tunes that are part of a folk tradition that goes deep in these two different countries and meshing them on an album.
And you'd think people would hang out with artists more.
That's right.
This whole world will keep on turning, and our hearts will keep on yearning for each other when the world is so unsure.
Marcy Marxer, Kathy Fink, and Xiao Tian, their new album is called From China to Appalachia.
Later in the show, West Virginia is considering a rate increase for customers of Appalachian Power, partly because of the higher cost of coal, and the burden falls heavily on poor people.
I need help. Other people need help. And please do not send that power bill up anymore.
You're Inside Appalachia. I'm Mason Adams.
Support for Inside Appalachia is provided by Concord University, educating the people of our region and beyond for more than 150 years. More information at concord.edu.
There are natural springs all over Appalachia. The deep folds of rock that make up our mountains bring water from the depths that trickle out of hillsides. Before indoor plumbing, that's where most folks got their fresh water. In Berkeley Springs, West Virginia, people still fill jugs with spring water to lug back home. In 2022, Folkways reporter Zach Harold visited the springs and brought us this story.
Every couple weeks, Lauren Lee stuffs a few dozen gallon jugs into this big black laundry bag. She brings the bag to a covered pavilion right in the middle of Berkeley Springs State Park, which itself is right in the middle of downtown Berkeley Springs, West Virginia. She chooses one of two brick water fountains there and begins to fill those jugs one by one with water drawn from 7 underground springs.
I like coming down here. I always meet new people. It's just, I've never been able to do this anywhere I've ever lived.
Lauren doesn't just come here to socialize, though.
We have well water where we live, so it's a lot easier to use this on our machines in the house, like for coffee and for the plants, because our water kills our plants, and it's good for like the pets, stuff like that.
The water here is free. But of course, it wouldn't be much more expensive to just buy water at Kroger or Dollar General. It would certainly be more convenient. No empty jugs or laundry bags necessary. But the water Lauren draws from these springs has something that store-bought water doesn't.
And I feel like this is part of the healing and just like the nutrients that I'm getting from the earth. that I'm able to like be mindful about and take it in as I'm getting it and serving myself.
People have been coming to Berkeley Springs for centuries looking for a healing. It was native people who apparently introduced Europeans to its medicinal properties. It was already such a popular destination by the mid-18th century that a young surveyor named George Washington made sure to stop by when he visited the area. Washington would return a few times, once to cure his own rheumatic fever, and later with his wife Martha and her daughter Patsy in tow, hoping to treat the girl's seizures. In 1776, when Washington was probably busy with other concerns, the Virginia General Assembly established a town around the springs. They called it Bath, after the spa town in England. That began a flurry of development in town, and some buildings from that time still survive. There's the 2-story Roman bathhouse, built in the 1780s. For a small fee, you can still enjoy a half-hour soak in a 750-gallon tub filled with spring water. The Gentleman's Spring, where you find the water fountains, arrived in the 1800s, as did the Ladies' Spring, which is today just known as the main bathhouse. Today, anyone of any gender can stop by for a massage, sauna, or bath if they can get a reservation.
Well, let's see, Friday. No, we're booked up on Friday also.
Book Saturday too.
You're welcome.
That's Leslie Smith, who runs the front desk at the spa, and Jesse Snow, the pool manager. I stopped by the office to buy an empty jug to fill with water, only to find they were sold out.
I sold 15 to one person on Saturday. Oh, people swear by that water. They take a bath in it, they wash their hair, they cook, they do everything. There's a lady that comes from China, and they come in here and all day long, 5-gallon jugs all day long, like 50 of them.
Now, I didn't meet anyone from China when I visited. Closest I came was Lebanon.
My friend told me about it a long time ago, and then when I moved closer, I realized I'm only 30 minutes away, then I started coming and get it.
This is Fadi Taj. He's from Lebanon originally, and then Frederick, Maryland. He now lives about 30 minutes outside Berkeley Springs. But of course, 30 minutes is still a long way to drive to fill up a few 5-gallon jugs with spring water every couple weeks.
Yeah, I come from a long way to get it.
Why?
I like it. Tastes better. I don't know, it's supposed to be natural and it's close to nature. So it probably just has some more of the chemicals in it that your body needs. It's not filtered out. Yeah, but you don't find many of these places around, there. So if you find one close, you take advantage of it.
No arguing with that. We certainly don't have a natural spring right in the middle of my hometown. So without the benefit of an empty jug from the gift shop, I dumped out my Nalgene and stuck it under the spout. The water tasted like water. And one bottle probably isn't enough to do much of anything, but I didn't see any apparent effects on my health. When I got home, I called up Dr. Dorothy Vesper, a geology professor at West Virginia University, hoping she might help me understand what's in the water at Berkeley Springs that makes it so special. Turns out she's a fan too.
Every time I go by, I fill my water bottle because I love Berkeley Springs water. It's good. It's good stuff.
That said, she's not sold on the health claims. A few of Dr. Vesper's graduate students have studied Berkeley Springs water over the years, and there are minerals in the water, magnesium as well as potassium, sodium, calcium, just in very small amounts.
Seems to me most spring water, you'd have to drink a lot of it to get enough of anything that was nutrient helpful, except for maybe something like calcium.
Their research did yield some good news, though. Not all natural springs are created equal. Some are not safe to drink from. Some have been contaminated by their surroundings, and others are actually just discharged from old abandoned coal mines. But Berkeley Springs, pristine.
It doesn't have a metallic. It's sort of a soft spring water. I just think it tastes nice. I like it. And I have no qualms whatsoever. I would drink it right out of the spring.
But aside from the taste, Dr. Vesper said the water's no better for you than what comes out of the tap at home. So what about the people who feel like they've been helped by the water, healed by it even? Is that all just the placebo effect? Well, Dr. Vesper made clear she's not a physician, but she does have a theory.
Personally, if you let me go and spend 2 weeks just sort of hanging out at some springs, I'd feel better. I'd be happy to do it.
And you know, there might be something to that, because there is a peacefulness there among the spring-fed pools and the cherry blossoms. Maybe the benefit folks like Lauren and Fadi ascribe to the water actually comes from this ritual of returning to the same place week after week and bringing water up from the earth, just like our forebears have done for centuries. Maybe it's not the magnesium. Probably not the magnesium. Maybe it's the memories mixed in there too. From the town formerly known as Bath, this is Zach Harold for Inside Appalachia.
That story is part of our Folkways reporting project, which covers arts and culture in our region. You can find more Folkways stories about step dancing, workhorses, chair caning, and more. They're at our website, wvpublic.org. Electric bills have been going up across the region. That's as utilities invest in the grid, recover costs from storm damage, and build new power plants to meet escalating power demand. In West Virginia, state lawmakers have also added rules to make sure these utilities are keeping coal-fired power plants open, despite the rising cost of running them. Now, Appalachian Power is asking state regulators for a rate increase. WVPB's Curtis State has more.
Coal may keep the lights on in West Virginia, but keeping the lights on is costing Appalachian Power customers more. The State Public Service Commission, tasked with regulating public utilities, is getting an earful about Appalachian Power's proposal to raise rates. Its docket has been filled with comments from residents opposing the company's latest rate increase since it was announced in early August. Appalachian Power is asking residential customers who use 1,000 kilowatt hours a month to pay an additional $28.72. That's in a state where 18% of residents live in poverty, above the national average of 13%. Median household income in West Virginia is $20,000 less than what it is nationwide. Though the PSC suspended the proposed 17% increase until next May, people have already spoken out at PSC hearings. Community groups held a protest in August in Charleston outside Appalachian Power's offices.
There's, I think, a growing groundswell of anger about utility rates.
That's Sean O'Leary, a senior researcher at the Ohio River Valley Institute. He's tracked the operations and costs of coal-burning power plants in the region for years. Opponents cite the economic hardships they already faced without the additional cost of power. Shauna Phillips of West Virginians for Energy Freedom said during the protest at Appalachian Power's office that church groups helped her pay a $600 electric bill when she was threatened with a shutoff in late 2022.
Now, if they hadn't come through, I would have had my lights off for Christmas. And that ain't right. That ain't right.
Marie Moten of Beckley told the PSC in a public hearing that she can't afford to pay her power bill and her medical expenses, especially with a disabled daughter.
I need help. Other people need help. And please do not send that power bill up anymore. We can't stand it. No. Have mercy on us. We cannot stand it.
West Virginia relies almost exclusively on coal to produce electricity. The state is the nation's second leading coal producer behind Wyoming. The industry contributes jobs and tax revenues that the state and many communities need. O'Leary says the public support for coal may not be as ironclad as it once was, especially with the rising cost of electricity.
My sense is that people are just fed up.
When Appalachian Power announced its intent to seek a rate increase on August 2nd, the company cited inflation, higher interest rates, and the cost of maintenance. Karen Wissing, a spokeswoman for Appalachian Power, said the company would work with stakeholders to mitigate the impact of the rate increase, but offered no further details. A PSC spokesman didn't respond to a request for comment. The 17% increase is hardly the first electricity customers have been asked to absorb in recent years. On September 1st, two separate increases will take effect for Appalachian Power customers. One adds $2.71 for environmental compliance costs. The second adds $2.50 a month for 10 years to pay for fuel costs the company incurred in 2021 and 2022 when energy prices skyrocketed. Appalachian Power is now asking for another $2 a month for fuel costs. That fuel is mostly coal. The PSC has to approve it. It has approved almost every past increase. Data show both that Appalachian Power's 3 coal plants operate less than half the time and that they lose money when they do. An energy analyst, in written testimony to the PSC, said the John Amos, Mountaineer, and Mitchell plants lost a combined $87 million in a recent 12-month period. An Appalachian Power witness told the commission that the company had too much coal on site at the plants and ran the plants to reduce its inventory, though at a loss. Why do they have so much coal? According to the Sierra Club, it's because in 2021, the PSC directed Appalachian Power to run its plants as much as 69% of the time. None of the company's plants currently achieve that, and few anywhere come close. The Sierra Club has sued the PSC in federal court over the directive. Jim Coatson, chair of the Sierra Club's West Virginia chapter, says the PSC directive pushed Appalachian Power to engage in costly coal contracts, which led to an oversupply.
We believe, and I think the evidence shows, that they initiated those contracts in part to satisfy the Public Service Commission's directive that they run at a 69% capacity factor.
Despite evidence that other resources, including gas, wind, and solar, would be cheaper for the state's electricity customers, O'Leary said the PSC continues to extend the state's reliance on coal.
They've just engaged in a series of decisions that have caused electric rates in West Virginia to climb, primarily to perpetuate markets for coal.
It may be months before the PSC takes up the Appalachian Power rate case. For Inside Appalachia, I'm Curtis Tate.
In 2022, Congress passed the Inflation Reduction Act, a sweeping piece of legislation to lower drug prices, address the budget deficit, and invest billions into clean energy. That investment includes a residential clean energy tax credit that can directly benefit people. Pennsylvanians are starting to take advantage of it. The Allegheny Front's Carol Holsopple has more.
Flora Cardoni, Deputy Director of Penn Environment, looked at recent federal tax data showing that last year, more than 30,000 Pennsylvania residents claimed this credit, saving them nearly $150 million on their taxes. I asked Cardoni how it works.
Basically, how it works is if you decide to put solar panels on your home, you can get back 30% of the cost of those solar panels via a tax credit. Some version of clean energy tax credits, solar tax credits, have existed for a long time. And we've seen that that's been a huge driver of solar adoption in the United States.
The tax credits for making your home more energy efficient, that is the Energy Efficient Home Improvement Credit, right?
The Energy Efficient Home Improvement Credit is the credit that applies to appliance upgrades for things like heat pumps for heating and cooling, heat pump water heaters or geothermal heat pumps. There are electric panel or circuit upgrades, insulation, getting more efficient doors, and all of those are about 30% of the cost. And then depending on which appliance or which thing you're upgrading, there may be dollar amount caps. So for example, for heat pumps, you can get back 30% of the cost up to $2,000 per year. You would do that home upgrade, make sure the heat pump you're buying or the solar panels you're installing qualify. And then when you're filling out taxes for that calendar year, you'll fill out IRS form 5695. Certainly an accountant, though, whoever helps you do your taxes will know more about it and can help you. I will say, though, that a lot of the money for energy efficiency, there's additional money that will be flowing through the state in the form of rebate programs. That program should be live in Pennsylvania this winter for things like insulation and air sealing materials, duct sealing, and more.
And a rebate happens after you already buy something.
Yes, after you buy something, but you don't need to wait all the way till you file your taxes to get the return.
Yeah. While these are significant tax breaks, they only really work out for people who can afford the initial investment in like a solar array or even a heat pump.
Yes, and that's why we're, excited about the rebate programs to come a little bit later, because things like, caulking your windows and sealing your home to save energy, which of course is the cleanest form of energy. The energy we don't use in the first place is good for our planet, but also saving folks money on their utility bills. Those switches are a lot more affordable for the average person to make, and they can still benefit. At the same time, we hope that people who might not be able to put solar on their roofs themselves can still help advocate for more solar in their communities. Houses of worship or nonprofits that don't have a tax burden previously weren't eligible for clean energy tax credits, but now those institutions can receive 30% back on the cost of solar as well. And a ton of those entities don't know that that money is out there. So even if you can't necessarily go solar, you can certainly encourage your church or house of worship or community center to look into it.
That was Penn Environment Deputy Director Flora Cardoni, speaking with the Allegheny Front's Carol Holsopple.
But it's, baby, but it's Monster Lung on the beat. Steve Jackson, baby.
In July, rescue crews located a hiker who'd been missing in Kentucky's Red River Gorge for 2 weeks. Scott Hearn of Southern Ohio was reported missing on July 6. Rescuers found him 14 days later. Hearn was alive and had survived the 2 weeks with no food and only what water he found. The Red River Gorge is a popular place for hiking, and as WEKU's Shepard Snyder reports, getting lost there is common.
The Red River Gorge covers around 29,000 acres of forest, cliffs, and rugged terrain. For curious hikers, it can be easy to get lost if exploring off the trails. John May is the chief of Wolfe County Search and Rescue, one of the teams that helps hikers in such situations. The 50-man unit is entirely made of volunteers who are on standby on top of their day jobs.
We've averaged anywhere from 80 to 90 rescues, a year. So that's over one a week. So we stay really busy. We're probably one of the most active rescue teams, in the eastern part of the United States, just because of the area that we cover.
May says it's mostly a matter of just getting adventure seekers back on track. Most of their rescue operations involve reaching lost hikers over their cell phone and are done remotely.
We actually send them a link to their cell phone. They click on that link, and then their location appears on our SAR Topo map, so then we know exactly where they are. And in that case, we may opt to give them directions on how to get back on trail or a heading on how to make their way back to the trailhead.
SAR Topo is a topographic radar rescue teams use to map the entire gorge and track where a missing person might be located. For multi-day operations, it's used to track areas where rescue teams have searched, their paths, and places they might not have checked yet.
If they have cell service, we can see them back at incident command exactly where they are and what they're doing, so it sends that track back in real time. So at the end of the day, at the end of that operational period, you look at that map and you can see areas that you haven't been into yet.
They'll also start to use other tools or dog teams to help with in-person tracking. Some members have taken classes to better find signs of human activity in the forest.
I mean, us humans leave sign everywhere we go. I mean, if we walk through this wooded area that we're in right now, we would leave signs that we've been there. Could be broken twigs on the ground, dew on leaves that, if it was in the morning, you can see where the dew's been knocked off the grass.
Getting injured people out of the gorge can depend on their condition. It can involve carrying them out for miles on a stretcher or using special rope gear if they've fallen off a cliff. In more extreme cases, teams will get assistance from the National Guard to help with helicopter extraction.
We've done raises as high as 150, 160 feet that people have survived. Seriously injured, but they're alive. So we have to get over the cliff, provide medical care, get them packaged, and then raise them up the cliff. Sometimes carry them out for miles.
An emergency medical services team is also on hand to help with any on-site treatment. David Pfeiffer is the founder and coordinator of Red Star EMS, the Gorge's wilderness treatment team.
When you're having a given medical condition in your living room, you generally are not having to worry about temperature and weather patterns and hydration status and all these sorts of things.
Those outdoor conditions are what Pfeiffer calls environmental pathologies, the underlying reasons why a lost hiker might feel fatigued or sick, like Scott Hearn, who was missing for 2 weeks.
When we locate somebody like Mr. Hearn after basically 2 weeks of being exposed in those environments, those are some of the big considerations. What's his nutrition status? How much has he had to drink? What's he been basically exposed to in those elements.
Because of that, the actual treatment that's performed can depend from outing to outing.
We are prepared for whatever we might find. And we carry a wide range of equipment, a wide range of medications, and we have a wide range of treatment abilities.
For prospective hikers, stories like Hearn's are cautionary tales. Pfeiffer says it's a good idea to prepare beforehand.
A lot of these calls could be avoided if people focused a little bit more on checking the weather, being honest with themselves about their own fitness level, and bringing what's usually referred to as the 10 essentials.
The National Park Service says those essentials include a navigation system, sun protection, insulation like a jacket or gloves, a flashlight, a first aid kit, a fire starter, a repair kit, extra food, extra water, and an emergency shelter. I'm Shepard Snyder in Wolfe County.
As Appalachian miners cut into increasingly thinner seams of coal, they're encountering more silica dust from rock. Silica dust causes silicosis and contributes to an advanced form of black lung disease. Coal miners and advocates have spent decades negotiating with the federal government to add safety rules limiting miners' exposure to silica dust. When a new rule was finalized in April, advocates celebrated, even as they warned about its limitations. Before the new rule could take effect, though, opponents threw up another roadblock. WVPB's Emily Rice has more.
A human takes, on average, 20,000 breaths per day. Imagine each breath heavy and tight from a career underground, working a seam for coal or valuable minerals. A constant reminder of what you sacrificed for your family's well-being.
I worked in the coal mine 27 and a half years. I come out at 48 with black lung.
That's Gary Hairston, the National Black Lung Association's president. Since leaving the mines, Hairston has been advocating for miners' rights and safe working conditions. He said he is concerned about younger coal miners. The nation's top health officials have urged the Mine Safety and Health Administration, or MSHA, the federal agency in charge of mine safety, to adopt strict rules to protect miners from rock dust. Black lung and silicosis are both a form of pneumoconiosis, a condition where inflammation and scarring make it hard for the lungs to get enough oxygen. Basic black lung diagnoses doubled in the last decade. Advanced disease has quadrupled since the 1980s in Virginia, West Virginia, and Kentucky. In recent decades, cases have risen further as miners dig through more rock layers to get to less accessible coal.
What's happening is a lot of these mines, especially in Appalachia, have been mined for hundreds of years, decades, and they are now mining rock. And so it's this constant hitting of rock from these machines that is causing an increase of silica dust in these mines.
That's Aaron Bates, Director of Communications for the United Mine Workers of America, or UMWA. Silica dust causes a long list of health problems and has been shown to increase the severity of black lung cases, affecting miners as young as their 30s and 40s. Mine operators are supposed to ventilate mine work areas to lower the concentration of coal and rock dust as well as methane. For years, MSHA set an upper limit of 100 micrograms per cubic meter averaged over an 8-hour shift. But after years of pressure from advocates like Gary Hairston, it cut that in half to 50 micrograms per cubic meter. Under the new rule, when respirable silica dust levels break the standard, mine operators must provide miners with respirators and ensure they are worn until exposure levels are safe, according to MSHA's Assistant Secretary, Chris Williamson.
That was one of the new provisions in the final rule, that the mine operator will have to notify MSHA, because we want to know that too. They have to take immediate corrective action.
The new, stricter safety rules went into effect in June, although coal producers have 12 months to comply. Advocates like Vonda Robinson, the vice president of the National Black Lung Association, celebrated the new rule.
And I think with this new ruling that I think it's going to be great for the coal mines and also the coal mine.
Retired miner Hairston has visited Capitol Hill to testify about working conditions, even though he won't benefit from the new safety measures.
The rule is pretty good. The thing is the funding.
Yes, the potential defunding, as Hairston puts it. In July, the House Appropriations Committee passed a spending bill for the Federal Department of Labor that includes a line preventing any funds from being used to implement the new rule. Aaron Bates of the UMWA says the organization opposes the measure.
To cut the funding from MSHA, organization that already has very limited funding in the first place, is a travesty to all miners out there.
Since the fate of the rule is in the hands of the U.S. Congress, we reached out to all of West Virginia's representatives. Replying by email, Senator Joe Manchin's office said they could not say anything on the record about the new rule or its implementation. Also by email, Senator Shelley Moore Capito said, quote, "The safety of miners' health is paramount," and noted that the Senate version of the bill would actually increase funding for MSHA, not cut it like the House version. Representatives Miller and Mooney did not respond to our request for comment. According to policy and advocacy associate with the Appalachian Citizens Law Center, Brendan Muckian Bates, MSHA's coal mine safety and enforcement program has already lost about half its staff over the last decade.
This is a real challenge that the agency has because with the new silica dust rule, certainly there will be a need for more mine safety and health inspectors who are already overworked.
For West Virginia Public Broadcasting, I'm Emily Rice in Charleston.
That story is part of a series called Public Health, Public Trust, a collaboration between West Virginia Public Broadcasting and the Global Health Reporting Center, with support from the Pulitzer Center. You can find all the stories on our website, wvpublic.org. Till next time, thanks for joining us as we journey throughout Appalachia. Our theme music is by Matt Jackford. Other music this week was provided by Joshua Utsi, Monster Lung, Tim and Dave Bing, Deep Jackson, and Dinosaur Burps. Bill Lynch is our producer. Xander Alloy is our associate producer. Our executive producer is Eric Douglas. Kelly Libby is our editor. Our audio mixer is Patrick Stevens. We had help this week from Folkways editor Chris Julin. You can find us on Instagram and Twitter @InAppalachia. You can also send us an email to insideappalachia@wvpublic.org. Visit wvpublic.org/InsideAppalachia to subscribe or stream all of our stories. Or look for Inside Appalachia on your favorite podcast app. Inside Appalachia is a production of West Virginia Public Broadcasting.